Hey BeMindful Fam! Welcome to Be Mindful with Sarah. On this channel we talk about all things mindful, and today we have an awesome video. I really want to highlight something on this planet that means more to me than anything, and that is our oceans. Don't know, I'm actually trained in oceanography, and for the past 2 years I've been working more on the policy side of things, but I've been extremely privileged and lucky to go a lot of places all around the world and see some really beautiful things. I've also seen a lot of the negative impacts on the corals, plastics and trash in the ocean, the decrease in wildlife. Unfortunately, for most of our world's oceans, they are really suffering. I went on a trip in 2018, so this is a little bit of a throwback to an island that's off of Malaysian Borneo. Malaysia is part of a peninsula where like Thailand is, if you can imagine, and then there is a huge separate piece of land called Borneo, and Borneo actually has 3 countries on it. It has Malaysia, it has Indonesia, and then up in there is a really small chunk, Brunei. And so off of Borneo, there are many different islands, and so I did an awesome trip and got to scuba dive at a location called Sipadan. And you actually can't stay on the island of Sipadan anymore because of all of the effects that the tourists were having on the local reef right there. I stayed at a neighboring island called Mabul, which was super awesome, and I met so many great people, which I hope some of which are watching this video. And you basically get a permit to dive on Sipadan, and it's the tip of an underwater volcano, and there is so much biodiversity and healthy coral, and it was the most amazing thing. I had never seen an ocean that looked this healthy, and it was just amazing to know that there are places like this out there that are really not touched by us and haven't had a lot of the impacts from like the rest of the world. The current state of our corals is that the majority of them are bleached and dying. I'll talk about some of the reasons why that is and what that even means. So anyways, I just wanted to share with you guys because I've been so lucky to see some of these places and be able to capture some of these things, and when I look back at the footage, I'm just astounded. And I think that exposure to these things, knowing that this planet is that insanely beautiful and that it can be that beautiful if we at an individual level and in the Earth's people take a little extra care when we are living our daily lives and dealing with our waste and companies and the impact that we have on this planet. So before we get into the actual footage, I want to tell you guys 4 main things that I consider to be really large threats to our ocean. And the first one is overfishing. Right now I'm working in the fisheries field and working on projects that feed into overall management of our fisheries. The United States manages over 400 fisheries. The scientists and managers are always working together to understand what's actually out there and what's an appropriate level that the fishermen can take when they're fishing, so that our economy is moving along and people that enjoy seafood and fishing related activities like recreational fishing are able to do so, but in a sustainable manner, so we can work together with our environment and not just pound it. Because when we do that, we get the kickback of less fish, less healthy oceans, impacts on the economy, and so forth. In the past 50-60 years, the majority of the large fish in the ocean have been fished out. Historically, fish that you catch now are nowhere near the size that they used to be, and the numbers as well have completely gone down. Now in the US, with our stock assessments, we've actually done a really good job with bringing back a lot of our fish stocks from overfishing, but there are still other impacts.
The second thing I want to talk about is climate change.
With climate change, a lot of fish are not able to live in the same area that they lived before because the temperature for them is different. On top of fish moving, climate change affects a lot of other things, but one main thing I want to talk about are corals. So if you don't know, corals are actually an animal. They're called a colonial organism where they can build up on each other. So one mound of coral that you might see could have thousands of organisms on it. And inside it lives a specific algae, allowing the coral to get food. In turn, the algae gets protection from the coral, and it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship. And it also gives the coral its color, because coral without this algae is white or bleached. And so corals are so sensitive, and they can only withstand a very small range in temperature. So if the temperature goes above what they're used to or what they're able to handle, their algae will actually expel themselves and leave. So eventually, a bleached coral, if the algae is not able to come back, it will die. And we're projected to go up to 98% of our reefs in the next 30 years will die. And I think that the environment is resilient when there are protected areas and places where fishing is less. Climate change is a whole nother beast that we on an individual level cannot by tomorrow change the temperature, but we can with our actions and our carbon footprint, by the products that we use, places that we go, things that we do. We can at an individual level lessen our carbon footprint, and that is a little less CO2 or a little less greenhouse gases that are in that atmosphere that's warming the ocean. So another thing I wanted to talk about is marine debris. Trash, plastic. There is so much trash in the ocean. If anybody has ever been at the beach or underwater, you are guaranteed to see trash. And there has been trash in the most remote places, islands that are 2,000 miles away from anything else. You find trash, and you actually find this trash and plastic inside the organisms, inside the fish. When we throw away toothbrushes and plastic things, a lot of that can end up in the ocean. Some cities just straight up dump their trash in the ocean. Some it gets there more by accident. Reducing our waste and thinking about better ways that we can recycle things will hopefully prevent one little piece of plastic or two or hundreds or however many. It has a ripple effect. Just want to plant the seed for using less one-use plastics. Helps us, helps the environment.
And the final threat I want to talk about is agricultural runoff and pollution from industries.
So industries will just dump their toxins into waterways that make it into the ocean, and also agricultural runoff from farms, and you have a lot of fertilizers. So all of these things affect the water quality of the waterways that they're going into, and corals and the environment are very sensitive. For example, in the Florida Keys, in the past 40 years, almost all the coral has died, and a lot of that is due to agricultural runoff. That is one specific thing you can point to. Thank you for listening, and I'm really excited for the next part of this video, because I think you guys are gonna just love the adventure and love the beauty of it, and really see a part of this world that you might not have ever seen before. It feels awesome to know that this world is so beautiful and it's constantly giving to us, and it just inspires me to want to give back to it. So without further ado, please enjoy the next part of the video and get ready to submerge with me.